So, here's a video that I bet a lot of people are really looking forward to. Hey guys, welcome to another video. Sorry if I haven't been uploading as much recently, but that's because, in my defense, I have been relatively busy with school and whatnot, so that's one reason why. And a lot of people are probably wondering, hey Owen, when on earth are you going to be able to review stuff like Falcon and Winter Soldier? Or, when on earth are you going to review the Invincible animated series on Amazon Prime right now? The series that's based off of this. And in case you're wondering, this is only the first compendium that I have. I'm planning on getting the other two at a later date, but that is not the subject of today's video. And in case you're wondering, I am planning on reviewing both Falcon Winter Soldier and Invincible, both when they respectively wrap up their first seasons later on in April. But moreover, today is a movie I'm going to be talking about that I've been excited for a very long time now. And judging by, of course, my key background image here, that film is, of course, Godzilla vs. Kong. Now, I should probably establish really quick sort of the relationship that I've had with both King Kong and Godzilla. Obviously, I'm a big fan of both. In fact, something that could definitely cement this is the fact that last year for my birthday, I got this bad boy. Probably one of the only real appropriate times I'm allowed to show this off. This is the Criterion Collection Godzilla the Showa era films, which has every single Godzilla movie on Blu-ray from 1954's from the original Godzilla, or Gojira as it's known in Japan, all the way up until 1975's Terror of Mechagodzilla. And it even comes with an accompanying piece of artwork for each individual film, which is also really cool. And I also have this really fantastic DVD box set of King Kong that includes 3 films. The original King Kong from 1933, which actually released on March 2nd, which is the exact day I was born. So I was born literally 72 years after this came out. So yeah, that was interesting. And it's a special 2-disc special edition that ends up coming with a ton of special bonus features and other material. There's the not as talked about and very much overlooked Son of Kong, which actually came out literally the exact same year as the original King Kong. It definitely is worth looking into, just for the sake of the fact that, both this and the original Kong were both released in the exact same year, which is honestly crazy to believe. And 1948's Mighty Joe Young. Now, while this isn't an official Kong movie, a lot of the people who did work on the first King Kong movie did come on to do this. In fact, several actors from the original King Kong actually came on to do Mighty Joe Young. So that's actually really cool. But yeah, I am a big fan of both King Kong and Godzilla, and I have been for a very, very long time. My introduction to Godzilla, of course, was the 2014 American version, and sadly the 1998 version starring Matthew Broderick and directed by Roland Emmerich, but we're not going to talk about that. No, instead, of course, we're going to be talking about the MonsterVerse. Now, King Kong vs. Godzilla, the original, is very cheesy and very, very funny. Obviously, the effects definitely aren't up to standard, even particularly around that time period. The Kong suit in particular looks like roadkill, but it is pretty funny. And it is really interesting to see Kong and Godzilla go at it. Particularly the one moment in which you see Godzilla literally do a little stop-motion kick against Kong. And, of course, one of the most iconic moments of the movie in which Kong literally rips out a tree and shoves it down Godzilla's throat. That's pretty iconic there. Now, ever since that film came out, a lot of people have been wanting to see a rematch between King Kong and Godzilla. And it definitely seemed like for a while that, time continued to pass. When's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? Then, around 2015, around 2016, it was officially announced. Legendary Pictures, who are the people that made Godzilla 2014, Warner Brothers was the distributors, Legendary was actually the one who made it, they announced that they had officially acquired the rights to make a King Kong movie, Kong Skull Island, and that they would be making a Godzilla sequel, and it would all be leading up to Godzilla vs. Kong. Now, for my brief overview and thoughts on the other MonsterVerse movies, Godzilla 2014, I really enjoy. I think the first act is definitely the best part of the movie. The build-up and the mystery surrounding, what exactly is happening is really well done. Really love how they did pay a lot of respect to Godzilla and did pay tribute to the classic design and the character here. Bryan Cranston, of course, does a fantastic job in the movie, of course, as many people have highlighted. And the visuals are definitely really something really great to behold when you can see them, because my biggest problems that I do have with the movie is that aside from Bryan Cranston, the human characters are kind of forgettable and, not really all that memorable, which I guess is the same thing, but you get what I'm trying to say. The movie, it can be very, very dark and very hard to look at. In fact, it can be so dark you can barely see a thing. And then, of course, there's the obvious, there's barely any Godzilla in it. That was a 2-hour movie, and Godzilla was only in the movie for like 8 minutes, which is ridiculous. Then, 3 years later, they released Kong Skull Island. Now, Kong Skull Island was my favorite of the MonsterVerse movies. I'll get into why it's actually now my second favorite in a minute. But I really definitely enjoyed the take of Kong that was taken via Jordan Vogt-Roberts, who was the director of the movie, the way he took it. True, the human characters, while, they're played by really great actors like Tom Hiddleston, Brie Larson, and some all-out greats like Samuel L. Jackson and John Goodman, while they do their roles well enough, they're not so great that they're particularly memorable, but they're not so god-awful that you'll instantly forget about them or think they're unlikable or god-awful. My favorite character is probably John C. Reilly, because he was probably the most off out of all of them. Like, I thought he was really funny. And I really liked, the sort of the Vietnam setting of it all, about how it's like sort of like an expedition and whatnot. Really like all the action sequences were absolutely fantastic, particularly one towards the end in which Kong fights the giant skull crawler. It's awesome. And then, of course, as you guys all know, I already did a video back on Godzilla King of the Monsters back when it came out 2 years ago, which is honestly hard to believe the fact that it was almost 2 years ago, but time flies, I guess. But anyways, having done a recent rewatch of all these movies, my thoughts on Godzilla King of the Monsters are very similar to what I initially had when I first saw the movie. The visuals are, of course, great. Probably has my favorite score out of any of the MonsterVerse movies. Bear McCreary just knocks it out of the park. The monsters fights are really, really, really cool and well done. The cinematography is just awesome. However, a problem that I did have with that is that very much like a lot of these MonsterVerse movies, the human characters aren't particularly all that great, despite that they're played by really well done actors. The runtime definitely felt a little bit too long for what it was. The pacing did kind of drag in a bit, all that other stuff. It was like 2 hours, 12 minutes, if I remember correctly, which is actually the longest out of all these movies. But yeah, I still do enjoy Godzilla King of the Monsters. And now, we're finally here. The rematch, almost 60 years in the making, Godzilla versus Kong. Does it deliver on that title? Yeah, I would certainly say so. I had an absolute blast with this movie. This movie was so much fun. I loved it so much. But before I get into sort of the kind of real critiques that I did have with the movie, I'm going to address the positives that I did have with the movie. One, the characterizations of both Godzilla and Kong are fantastic. King Kong has always been a really fantastic character to me. In fact, when you get down to it, King Kong was actually sort of the first character in a major motion picture that was not played by an actor. He was entirely a special effect. And here, he's still really well done. I really like the characterization of King Kong here. I think he's really fantastic because he's definitely a bit more rugged and a lot more aged than we first see him in Kong Skull Island. Because, of course, this is 40 years after Kong Skull Island takes place, so... Of course, Kong's gotten a lot older and a lot bigger, too, because, of course, he's going to need to match up against Godzilla. And then, of course, Godzilla, of course, is absolutely fantastic. You see him, of course, there is a fair amount of Godzilla destruction. And not only this, but the monster battles. Boy, do they deliver on the monster battles. And the thing is, with this movie, you'd expect to be getting just Godzilla versus Kong. Those aren't the only monster battles that you're going to see in the movie. Because for those who have seen the movie, you know that there's a third party that happens to be introduced. I'm not going to say what it is to those who haven't seen the movie, because I do think you should check it out. But yeah, let's just say the fact that when that character did show up, I was pleasantly surprised, and it was really cool seeing that character show up in this franchise. But anyways, another really great thing that I love about the movie is the fact it's like, I never figured this out until James Rolfe of the Angry Video Game Nerd pointed it out in his Godzilla King of the Monsters review, that for these Godzilla movies, whenever they hold battles with each other, they're almost always set at night and almost always during the rain. Thankfully, in Godzilla vs. Kong, it does not have that problem. There are definitely a lot of battles that take place in the movie that take place in the day. True, the main battle between Kong and Godzilla does take place at nighttime, but it's well lit so you can still see everything that's going on and see everything that's happening and see like every move that Kong and Godzilla end up taking. So that's definitely really refreshing, the fact that they fight in the day and you can see what they're doing and fighting. Not only this, but I really enjoyed the score done by Tom Holkenborg, better known as Junkie XL. I thought the fact that he did for this movie was really well done and definitely served its job. Also really liked how he sort of brought in these, of course, very much like King of the Monsters, he does bring in sort of the classic Godzilla theme, but obviously, of course, he puts his own little spin and take on it. And I also really enjoyed the score that he did for Kong, too. I thought it was really well done. Another great thing about the movie that I want to talk about is its running time. My last review, for those who are unaware, was for Zack Snyder's Justice League, and that movie was 4 hours long. This is just under 2 hours, and to me, that's a huge relief, and it's actually the shortest out of all the MonsterVerse movies. And I'm so glad the fact that, it wasn't too overly long, in which it's like, it was the perfect runtime that it needed to be to get its point across, and I really did enjoy that. Now we move on to stuff that I was sort of a little bit more iffy on. The human characters. To be fair, this is always a big problem with monster movies because when you come to a monster movie, when you come to a movie like Godzilla vs. Kong, you're not really here for the human drama. You're mainly here to see the monster battles. The humans in here, they serve their job in getting us to get the story going and to have the giant monster battles. Otherwise, there would be no build-up to it. And all the actors here do really fine jobs. Alexander Skarsgård, Rebecca Hall, they do pretty good jobs. They brought back Millie Bobby Brown and Kyle Chandler from Godzilla King of the Monsters to this, which was really cool. I thought Bryan Tyree Henry was really great here. And of course, they brought Julian Dennison, aka Fire Fist from Deadpool 2 in here. But my personal favorite character probably had to be a young deaf girl by the name of Gia, in which I really like the relationship that she has with Kong, in which they actually both communicate with each other via sign language. I actually legitimately thought that was really cool, and I always loved seeing the little moments in which you do see Kong and Gia talking with each other. I really did like that. But yeah, so human characters, of course, not great, but they're not god-awful either. And now this is like a bit of a tiny little complaint. It doesn't overall affect the movie at all. But while there is definitely a fair amount of Godzilla in this movie, I did kind of wish the fact that we did get just like a tiny bit more of him, but that's just me personally. I just really wish the fact that there was just a little bit more Godzilla stuff in here. Like, maybe, you could see him, making his way down to Hong Kong. And, you see, the military, try and stop him. But then he just, decimates all these, aircraft carriers and planes. Very much like how he did in the opening battle with Kong. But that's just me personally. Adam Wingard, who was the director on Godzilla vs. Kong, I think he knocked it out of the park. Because he clearly made this from the perspective of a Godzilla and Kong fan. This is clearly a movie that is made by a huge fan of this, and is also made for the fans of this. Because if you're looking at this, looking in for an Academy Award-winning drama in here that also happens to have giant monsters in the background, you're going to be significantly disappointed. But if you're coming in here just to see Godzilla and Kong fight each other, then you've definitely come into the right place, and you're definitely going to have a really good time. And I also really like all the little subtle callbacks that they do have to other Godzilla and Kong movies, like how there's a scene in which you see Kong being lifted up in a giant net by all these aircraft carriers that reminded me very much of the original King Kong vs. Godzilla. There's even a scene in which, because Kong actually has a special battle axe, he takes the the handle part of the axe, and he shoves it down Godzilla's throat during the main battle in Hong Kong. Very similar to how he shoves the tree down his throat in the original Kong. And there are actually a couple of moments that remind me of a couple of other King Kong movies, like King Kong Lives, which is actually the second movie that Toho did following King Kong vs. Godzilla, and even a little bit of the 1976 remake that was done by Paramount Pictures, too. But yeah, overall, Godzilla vs. Kong was a really, really fun time. Definitely a really great monster movie. Probably, honestly, my favorite movie out of the entire MonsterVerse. I honestly would love to see more of the MonsterVerse because, you know, I don't think the fact that they've made a actual definitive bad movie, and I really want to see more, like, I really want to see, like, you know, their takes on other Godzilla monsters. Like, what would a Godzilla take, what would this monster, what would a MonsterVerse take beyond a character like Biollante, or Destroyer, or Space Godzilla? I should also mention the fact that with this movie, they definitely went more out there with the concept of the hollowed earth, which is very much like Journey to the Center of the Earth, and which is like there's a little ecosystem that exists under the Earth's surface in the core of the Earth that we just don't know about that houses these giant monsters. For Kong, it's definitely a little bit more outlandish, you know, a little bit more weird for a character like Kong, because he's always been a little bit more grounded and realistic. Whereas Godzilla, this is just like an average, like, this is like a Wednesday for Godzilla. But, yeah, but yeah, circling back around to my final thoughts, I thought it was a really fun time. Really happy with the fact that with the final battle, there was actually a definitive winner on who would win in a fight, Godzilla or Kong. It wasn't like the original Godzilla versus King Kong, in which they ended up having it sort of vague as to who exactly won. I am really glad the fact that with this battle, there was a definitive winner. I'm not going to say who it is, because that would take the whole purpose out of, you know, the movie. Really enjoyed all the action sequences. They were really great. The characterizations of King Kong and Godzilla were fantastic. Sure, we could have used a little bit more Godzilla, and true, the human characters weren't particularly all that great. But I did think the fact that for the people involved, I think they did a fine job. So that's why I'm going to give Godzilla vs. Kong a final rating of 8 out of 10. Thought it was really fantastic. Definitely think it's worth watching. If you can't watch it in the theaters, watch it on HBO Max. It's currently streaming on there for a limited amount of, for like a month. Which, obviously, of course, there are a lot of, you know, people who are, like, you know, against HBO Max and the Warner Brothers thing that they're doing right now, which they're releasing all the 2021 movies both in theaters and on HBO Max. But I do think the fact that it's definitely a little bit more convenient for somebody like me, in which I did try to see this in theater, but unfortunately it ended up getting sold, like the showing that I wanted to go to got sold out, so I had to settle for home. But I really did enjoy the movie, and I really think that you should check it out by any means necessary, by any official means necessary, so don't bootleg the movie. But yeah, so yeah, that was my video on Godzilla vs. Kong. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It's probably going to be a while before you see my next major review, because I do have a lot planned for what I do want to do, but a lot of the stuff that I really want to review later on in April, such as the Mortal Kombat movie that's going to be happening later in April, Falcon the Winter Soldier when that wraps up, Invincible when that wraps up, and I may be doing another review that I'm not going to say what it is, but, you know, it'll be a surprise interview. It'll be a surprise review for those curious as to what that video will be. But I have at least 3 or 4 videos that I want to do. But the thing is, the things I want to cover, they either A, haven't officially finished wrapping up yet, or B, they haven't even come out yet. So until that moment, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to leave the video a like. Make sure to subscribe and hit the little notification bell to make sure the fact that you don't miss out on any future uploads. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you thought of the movie if you've seen it in the comment section down below. Also, please be peaceful and kind to each other down in the comments. But anyways, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And, yeah, not really much else to say other than stay gold.